You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Marly Broudie, founder and president of SocialEyes Communication out of Toronto, Canada. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Good. And I suppose helping clients all over. So I don't want to just put you into Toronto, but throw that little piece out there. So this is our long-awaited episode. I think we've been trying to schedule for a couple of years now. So welcome in to Lawyer Stories HQ virtually.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And before we get into it, I just want to give a little, I'm delighted to tell you about one of our business partners, Lex Reception, who will give law firms less admin and more time for you. Switch off knowing that your calls are covered by Lex, from answering calls and messages in real time to appointment scheduling. Your clients are going to receive the care and support they need with Lex Reception. Their legal answering specialists are on hand 24/7, so you'll never miss a call or future case. With custom scripting and software, it'll seamlessly integrate with your current workflow. Lex will make sure every potential client gets fantastic service from the very first call. Thank you to our friends at Lex Reception. Definitely check them out. Highly recommend. Marly, back to you. Tell us, how have you been in Canada up there? What's going on?
Yeah, Canada's an interesting place at the moment.
Is it? Really?
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm just saying, Canada, they seem like they stay out of everything. You never hear about like the big fights or wars, and I'm not trying to jinx anything.
Yeah.
I don't have that power, but it just seems like it's such a chill place.
Yeah. I mean, it's I feel like it's had the reputation to be a chill, cool place.
Yeah.
It's definitely, at least we're feeling a little bit of heat politically
Ooh,
over the last little bit in Toronto.
all right.
It's a very interesting time coming up to elections next year.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
there's a lot of that stuff going on.
Were you born in
Um,
Canada, by the way?
I was born in
Wow,
Canada,
cool.
born and raised in Toronto. Yeah.
That's all. And David, your partner, is he also from?
So Dave's South African. So he
Wow.
was,
Okay. That's
yeah.
super
So
cool. All right.
he was born in South Africa. He came over to Toronto when he was 10. So he's my African husband.
That's
South
amazing.
African
And you
husband.
guys run the business together, SocialEyes Communications, like sort of a family business. But
Yeah. So I'll give you a little bit of background about SocialEyes. So I come from the legal world. I worked at a litigation firm for 6 years here in Toronto before I pretty much joined forces with one of my amazing mentors, who was a litigator for
yeah.
16 or 17 years before she gave up her practice and she became the firm's director of business development. Started working with her under her wing and started loving marketing and BD. And at the time, pre-children, pre-marriage, I started to kind of see the value in digital marketing and business development outside of the firm. And I had a very supportive fiance at the time,
Mhm.
and his background is in business development for
Okay.
financial services. So he kind of pushed me, gave me that little push to take a leap of faith. I left my law firm job at the time and launched SocialEyes initially as a consulting option.
Okay.
Figured at the time, how many clients do I need to get to supplement my income?
Sure. Yep.
And very quickly things sort of snowballed. Got married, I got pregnant at the same time as launching the business. And I would say within the first year, there was a lot of opportunity coming our way. And Dave and I kind of realized the opportunity, especially with professional services. in marrying digital marketing with business development, because I think that's really
Yeah.
where it falls flat. And especially working with lawyers and law firms is if they don't see results, they're out. So
Right.
it
It's
really
scary.
comes, yeah, yeah. But I mean, a good thing if you know what you're doing. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me and my background.
That's awesome. So I do want to back up a little bit because
Yeah.
that's a lot, and I want to unpack that. It's a cool story. You mentioned you worked at a law firm. You started working at a leading litigation firm in 2012.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience. Like, what were you doing at the firm?
Yeah. So I actually, I was a paralegal.
Okay.
It actually took me a while to surrender my license because I always had that in my back pocket. But that's what I went to school for. I graduated from Law and Society at a university here in Toronto. I ended up taking a paralegal course. I then worked at the Court of Appeal for Ontario and ended up transitioning from there over to a leading litigation firm called Learners LLP. And I started as a paralegal and worked in various different capacities while I was there. So I started as a paralegal. I ended up doing some law clerk work. Ended up doing some floating work. Was on some big trials where I worked alongside a few of the lawyers. And I would say in my
Wow.
fourth year, um, like I said, the one of the litigators that I was working with, she was in transition. So she was really enjoying business development coaching. And she was giving up her practice to become the firm's director of business development. So while I was working with her and some of the other lawyers at the firm in the capacity of, let's call it legal assistant, law clerk, paralegal, because
Sure.
I kind
Yep.
of had a bunch of
Yeah.
hats at the time. Um, I remember she gave me, I had gone up to her and I had said, listen, I'm kind of bored doing this, paperwork and
Wow. Okay.
organizing and,
All
you
right.
know, drafting affidavits and all that exciting law office stuff. And she was working at the time on a submission for one of the lawyers to become the next rising star. We have these directories. You know how it
Oh
is.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so she was like, do you want to draft the submission? And I was like, sure. So I ended up working really late into the wee hours one night, drafting this submission for this lawyer, Roy, at the time to win this award. And gave it to her, and in her usual practice, it came back all,
Yeah.
cut up into a million
The
pieces,
red ink.
the red ink all
Yep.
over the place. But what I saw with, working with her in two different capacities, one in her legal practice and one for marketing, is that the feedback that she gave me allowed me to be a little bit more creative. So I was used to
Okay.
drafting documents in a very methodical way, right? As you're drafting documents and stuff like that in the law, in the legal sort of, atmosphere. And then when it came to a marketing submission, that's what it was, right? It was a submission for this lawyer to win a Rising Star Award.
Right.
There was a lot more, I want to say a lot less red tape. So the feedback on the paper was like, get more creative, like
Creative.
use more
Right.
descriptive words,
Right.
like,
Right.
let's pull on some heartstrings. And I was like, uh-huh, okay. And so my second draft, she was like, yes, like this is
So
fantastic.
what did, like, at that moment, you just said, "Aha," like, what were you feeling? Like, you get this paperback, but it's not the old brief or, like, the depleted.
Yeah.
It's like a creative piece that you're really, like, excited to work on.
Yeah, so it excited me because it allowed me to storytell.
Right.
And I think that that is one of the biggest and most important parts of good marketing, right? Is
Yep.
is good storytelling. And so the piece went from, I want to call it a very kind of like dry, here's my submission on why Roy should win this award and here's his accolades, to, the feedback was, let's tell a story about Roy. Roy has a story.
Right.
And so
So you had a
I
shift. It was like a mindset shift. You had a shift from, like,
totally,
count 1, count 2, like, all that stuff to whatever it was
totally.
to to like, okay, I could be a little flowery, a little like, let me tell this story in a different way.
Exactly, exactly. And so I worked hard on this kind of reframing of this submission. And, to make a long story short, we submitted we submitted the application and he got the award.
Nice.
And yeah, and it was incredible. And it was this sense of like you feel like you're doing something like socially redeeming.
Yeah.
So I got really excited about it. And Jane, her name is at the time was like, I see a sparkle in your eye, Marley. Like, let's go for lunch and talk about this. And so
Okay.
we went for lunch and we sat down together and she was like, I've worked with you for a couple of years and I've never seen you shine as much as you have in the last couple of weeks working on this submission. And now, he got the award and you're like a different person. So like, what are we going to
Wow.
do with your career?
Marley, that's
And
amazing. I
yeah,
love
it
that.
was, it
That's
was
so cool. Yeah.
yeah, it was crazy. And so, fast forward, I ended up going from learners. I ended up securing a position at another law firm in Toronto, another litigation firm that was actually on the other side of the elevator bank in the same building, called Lensner Slot in a marketing and business development role.
Okay.
And I worked there for a couple years.
So
And
was
then,
this, hold on. So was this at the guidance of this other
yeah,
that shifted her role? She was like, go
totally.
get this other job. She wasn't like, hey, come work and let's start a department at this firm. She was like, go get a job somewhere else.
Y-
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a funny story, actually. So this was like a couple months later, she was on vacation. And she has this like, I'm going to disconnect when I go on vacation, but I know she really checks her emails. And this position had become available at this other firm. And I had a moment of like, do I apply for it? It was right in line with like what I wanted to explore. And it was on a marketing team.
Yeah.
And I'd flipped her the position and I'm like, we don't need to talk about it until you come home and there's no rush. But I just wanted to like out of transparency, like this position's available at an amazing firm, and she wrote back, like it was instantly, it was like 30 seconds later. And she was like, you need to apply.
Okay.
And so I applied for the position. I ended up having my first interview a week later. So she was back. She was there, like gave me like a high five handshake on my way out. And I went to the interview and I got the position on the spot.
Wow. And so you sent this to like your boss sort of
Yeah, I sent it to
before
my
you
boss
even applied. Like that is,
before I even applied.
wow.
Yes.
That's like, we wish all employees would do that. Right. So
And
that's
now I wish
incredible.
my own team would do stuff like that.
But
Um,
cause you knew you were headed in like a different direction. You had something that felt like really like it grabbed you.
yeah, and I also knew at the time like Jane's role and where she wanted to go. She had her eyes set on leaving the firm and
Okay.
launching a consulting firm for lawyers. So
Right.
I was like, the next couple of years she's out. I need to explore what, this marketing and legal is all about. I got the position. I had her support. She was like, you have to take it. And it was a very, very awesome learning curve.
Yeah.
And I had an amazing mentor at my new job that taught me to be, strategic and critical when it came to marketing, though, which is a totally different world. And while I was working there, I realized that there was more. I wanted a little bit more. I didn't like the confines of a 9 to 5 job.
Okay.
Um,
But did you
I
like the work when you got there? I was like,
loved the work.
okay.
Yes,
All right.
loved,
So you're about to
felt
tell me when you launched SocialEyes. So just before you do,
yeah.
like, I guess my question before you tell us, like, when did you know it was to like launch it?
Yeah, so I got engaged and my husband and I were getting married in September. We were going on our honeymoon to Italy shortly after that. And while I was on my honeymoon, I had some family stuff that had happened back here with my mom and stuff like that. It afforded me some time to take a step back and kind of evaluate my life, what I
Okay.
wanted, what I wanted from a personal standpoint, what I wanted from a professional standpoint. And I had a moment where I was actually really unhappy. I was not that I was unhappy in my job because I loved what I did, but I felt like a sense of like I wasn't fulfilled.
How long had you been
Um,
there at that point?
I had been there for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
Um, and I just felt like, it was a large firm. All creative ideas had to go through like rounds of executive committee approvals. So
Mm.
there was a lot of red tape. There was
Yeah.
a lot of overthinking, um, things that, shouldn't be overthought for so long.
Right.
And I was frustrated. I felt like once my creative juices were flowing, it was like 3 p.m. I didn't want to have to turn my computer off at
Right.
5 p.m. But,
Right.
you have to because it becomes an HR issue. And
Yeah.
I remember sitting down with, at the time, this woman who was filling in for my boss who was on maternity leave. And she was like, Marly, you're an entrepreneur. Like, you need to do something.
Wow.
And yeah. And there's like, I feel like there's a couple people you meet in life
You
that
had
like
like two
kind of
moments.
like
Yeah.
direct you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And so I went on my honeymoon. I came back and I was like, I'm not ready to go back.
Yeah.
And I know that this may leave me in a position to, be shit on
Nice
by
job,
my
David, by the way. Nice job, Dave. She's not going to
yeah.
come back after the
Like
honeymoon.
I'm just not ready. I'm
All
just
right.
not ready. Yeah. And I kind of realized like what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. Funny enough, I had Dave behind me where he was like, we have no children. Like, this is the time. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you want to do something more. Like, let's figure out what you want to
Great.
do. And
So supportive.
super, super supportive. And, I ended up not going back. So I never went back to that law firm.
Did you like tell him you weren't going back?
I told them I wasn't going back. I had a very transparent conversation with my
Okay.
manager at the time, and she was fully supportive. And because I had been off for 3 weeks, I think there were a lot of like loose ends that were tied off while I was away. And I got a sense of like, you're free, like, go and do your thing. And I'm the type of person where like when I have an idea and like when I want to do stuff, I know my team will probably hear this podcast episode and laugh because when I have like a project, I'm like, I need to do it. Like, and I need to do it now. And like I'll stay up all
Yep.
night till I finish. So
Good.
I came up with the business name SocialEyes Communications at like midnight. Within 2 days, I had created a Wix website myself.
Wow.
I had registered for like all the, technical stuff that you need to register,
Trademarks and all that
business
stuff.
name,
Yeah.
HS,
LLC. Yep.
yeah, all of that good stuff. And I solicited my first client in like 24 hours. And that was the start of
So you
SocialEyes.
came up with your pricing and all that, and you just like, or you kind of
I mean,
on it, like,
yeah, it was more
earn
of
me a
like,
few bucks. Yeah.
yeah, it was more of like, let's get someone through the door. I wasn't really even, um, like, picky with pricing or anything like that. I
Yeah.
was just like, yeah, like, let's cover my time, like what is my hourly rate at the time. And it was more about like I wanted to get the experience of working for myself.
Yeah. Right.
And it's a different ball game for
Yeah.
sure.
For sure. So Marley, like moving on to socialize, that's just really great backstory. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Tell us like what socialize communications does for their clients. Like what are just give me the list.
Yeah. So it's funny because I had a call this morning. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see I did like a little spiel on I had a call this morning and I always ask, like, where are you in your digital marketing journey? And like so many times people will be like, yeah, I do digital marketing. And then I say, okay, great. Like, what is it that you do? And it's like, oh, well, I post on social media. And like that alone is not a digital marketing strategy. There's
Yeah.
so
It's like
many
it's
elements. There's elements that come into play. And the way that we look at things is there needs to be a cohesive strategy, right? So it starts with even like a basic search online. Like if you were to search, you know, your name and what you do, what comes up. So and we think about it in the sense of like the client journey, right? Today clients are way more educated and sophisticated when it comes to digital. So the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to vet you online. So they're going to go online and they're going to type in either best family lawyer in Toronto or best family lawyer in Miami. Or they're going to hear about you, Benny Gould, like, what is it that you do? So they're going to look you up. So it starts with like your website. So
Yeah.
your website is like, number one, is your website optimized? Okay. Is your social media working for you? Is your content working for you? Now, is your lead generation working for you? Now that you have lead gen, do you have like the infrastructure set up to actually like nurture those leads? So when it comes to digital marketing, the way that we approach it at SocialEyes is we look at where each client is in their digital marketing journey, and then we map out a strategy. We map out, where are their gaps? We do like what's called a SWOT analysis, which is your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we map out, where is it that you are right now, and where is it that you want to go? And your digital marketing has to be tied into business development, because if
Yeah.
it's not bringing you business opportunity, your marketing is not working for you. So it's not just about social media posts and throwing up pretty posts. It's much more than that, right? It's your online reputation. Is your website bringing you leads? Is your website converting? We're all scrolling on our mobile phones these days. Is it mobile friendly? Are you
Right.
lead genning in the most optimal way? So it's all of these pieces that come together to actually result in strong digital marketing. And
Wow.
it's different for everyone.
And so you have a team, like, do you like
Yeah.
do like Instagram posts for people? You take control of their Instagram account, you take control of their website, you take control of their Facebooks, you do these like sort of catered to each and customized to each platform.
Yeah, I feel like you should come work at SocialEyes. Look at
Yeah.
you. Yeah, you got it. So what we do first is we do a little bit of an audit. So the way that we approach things is a little bit different than other agencies, where if you go on the other agency's website, you'll see like a gold, silver, bronze package. We don't really believe in packages, because I personally just don't, I never believe that digital marketing needs to fit into like a cookie cutter solution. So
Sure.
what we do first is we run an audit, and
Yep.
we see where a client is at, or where a prospect is at, and we'll put together a plan. And sometimes it's okay, let's get the foundation going. You don't have a solid foundation. You don't have, for example, like you don't have a optimized Facebook profile, or you don't have a brand that's working for you. So, we'll start from the basics. Like, let's go through brand guidelines. How do we talk about your company? How do we talk about your practice? What is it that you do? Do you have a niche audience? And then we build out messaging. And then from there, we build out a plan. So some clients, we're their marketing team. So instead of hiring 3 or 4 different people,
Right. Oh,
we have, an ads expert, a content creator, an email marketing expert. And usually
wow.
I find where um, firms kind of fall flat is they think they can hire one person who has the expertise to do it all. But
Okay.
you can't be an email marketer and an ad strategist and an SEO specialist and a Google Ads specialist. Like, usually there isn't one person who knows how to do it all. So
Right.
for some clients that we work with, we're their marketing team. And for some clients that we work with, they have a marketing team, and we fill the gaps. So they'll be like, we have somebody who does content,
Gotcha.
but we don't have somebody who does our SEO. And so we'll put together an SEO strategy. Or, we have somebody who does our Google ads and SEO, but we don't have anybody doing our social media content. So it's kind of different for every client, but some
Yeah.
clients we're their team, and then other clients we provide services to fill the gaps that their team doesn't have.
Marley, I could tell how passionate you are about what you do just based on how you talk about it. So that's always
Yeah,
really. So you have this background that you just told us about in working for a leading litigation firm in
yeah,
Canada. Like, do you think your legal background has helped you like work with lawyers?
absolutely. I think that, and I mean, you know it firsthand, is that law firm marketing is very different than, working with other industries. There's a level of academic writing that comes into play. There's a level of sophistication. There's a level of, being able to talk to lawyers and handle lawyers. And fight back when we need to.
Yeah. What if they're
And
like, I don't like that color. Like we need to go with a different
oh
color.
my gosh. And it happens so
Yeah.
often,
Right.
right? And, the hardest thing, and I think the most challenging thing that my team experiences is stuff like that, where sometimes marketing is subjective. Like something that may look
Yeah.
amazing to you may not look amazing to me, and vice versa. And so a lot of times it's not that there's, a right way of marketing, but the way that we need to communicate. And I think customer service is a major, major aspect here, especially when dealing with professional services and dealing with lawyers and firms, is that it's in how we position ourselves as part of the law firm's team. And the way that I've always structured things and the way that I want our clients to feel is that it's a boutique experience. Like, the experience when you go to a hotel and you're able to call concierge and you're
Yeah.
like, I have one towel, I need more. And 5 minutes later, there's
Right.
four towels there. So it's that same feeling. Like, I want our clients to feel that we have their best interest at heart when it comes to marketing their business, and that we're here to work with them, right? Because it's very rare that we submit a project and it's like, great, approved, move on. And, there's a lot of back and forth, and then, and
Has to
that
be.
there has to
There has
be,
to
there
be.
has to
Yeah.
be.
So how do you convince somebody like an old school lawyer who's like just goes to the stacks to do his research, has like the website that's like dial up from like AOL, click like the button and like, you go to his website, it's like 2 pages and it's like,
Yeah.
how do you convince the old school lawyer like that they need to update their branding?
Those are my favorite.
Yes.
So what we like to do is we do a competitive analysis. A lot of times, especially the old school lawyers who are stuck in the ways of, I built my business based on referrals. That's usually like the number one challenge, right? Is you have an old school lawyer who's built his business based on referrals, who never had to rely on digital marketing before to win business. Is convincing that the landscape has changed, and to put in front of him or her successful business owners that have, become successful through digital marketing.
Right.
And
Okay.
many times I'll pull up a computer and I'll be like, hey, Alan, let's sit together and let's look together. Let's type in that,
Sounds like a guy who would need an update on his
there
website.
you go. Yeah, exactly. But let's type in, like, best Toronto commercial litigation lawyer or best New
Right.
York commercial litigation. Who comes up and what are they doing?
Yeah.
And sometimes it just takes them seeing how it all works, because a lot of times those old school lawyers don't understand. So there's like a level of education that
Sure.
has to happen to get them to see that if they don't innovate, and if they don't if they don't optimize what they currently have, they're going to miss out on opportunity that their
Right.
competitors essentially are going to win.
Totally. So I guess that kind of leads into my next question of how is digital and tech shaped and evolved specifically for law firms and attorneys and receivers.
Such a good question, and so relevant today. Um, there's been such an evolution when it comes to tech and digital. And if you look back at, like, even the evolution from the 50s, right? Like the 50s, we got those dictation machines, which changed the scope
Yeah.
of work
Oh,
for
yeah.
lawyers dictating, right? And then the 70s, lawyers started working with computers. And in the 90s, Google started selling like search terms, right? Which became Google AdWords. And then you have like the 2000s, have big data and e-discovery and all of the social platforms that were launched in the 2000s. And then we got to 2020, right? And COVID, which totally changed the way lawyers operate. We had video conferencing. We had video conferencing in the courtroom. We have, live video audio. We had like blockchain. And now, 2023, 24, we see the optimization of AI. And where is that going? And a lot of lawyers and professional service providers are very worried that, like, AI is going to replace, right? Like,
Yeah.
AI is going to replace what a lawyer can do. We don't need lawyers because lawyers, we don't need to draft contracts anymore. AI can do it. And that's not the case. And what I like to do is I like to just bring, um, people back to the fact that human connection and the way that we think is always going to surpass what a computer or what a digital tool can do. But
True.
now we have these digital tools that can make our lives easier and better because we can use these tools to get in front of the right people. We can use these tools to, time efficiencies. We can use these tools to better our practices and to, speed things up and to become more efficient and more effective. And when we talk about digital marketing or tech, we need to like wrap our heads around, okay, we're in this like evolution of change. And how can we embrace these tools and how can we embrace these digital platforms to better our businesses? And, if you look at traditional marketing. So like you spend all this money and you get a billboard or you place an ad in a traditional magazine or, all the lawyers are taking out space in these directories and I know in Canada, for example, law firms spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a year on like we need an ad in the OR reports or we need an ad in chambers or we need an ad in best lawyers and it's very expensive. And, the one thing I always ask is like, what's the return? Like, what's the return on investment? How can you quantify that spend? And the amazing thing about these digital platforms like Facebook, like Google, like Instagram is that there's actual data here. Like, we can actually run a targeted ad to specific people in a specific demographic and get them over to your website. And then I can turn around to you and say, hey, Benny, X amount of people went to your website with $200. X amount of people filled out a form on your website. We now know the cost per lead. We now know the cost per
Wow.
acquisition. So now you can reverse engineer, right? So what we do at the end of the year, every year, is we sit down with our clients and we say, okay, we spent $50,000 a year. That translated into 60 leads. Of those 60 leads, how many files did you close? Now, how many what's the revenue on that?
Right. Right.
And now you can start to like actually reverse engineer. So if you want a year of growth next year, what can we take from that revenue to reinvest in your marketing? Because now you're playing with numbers, right? It's not a guessing game. It's not like, oh, I should put this ad, I should spend this money on a billboard, but we don't know like how many people went to your website from the billboard, how many people called you from the billboard. We just know that it's an ad in a great
Right.
location and
Right.
you're getting exposure. So, what my long-winded answer there is that I think it's so important. It's such a pivotal time to assess how digital can help, how digital can get you ahead, and how these digital platforms and how these tech tools like AI, like ChatGPT, are going to be utilized to actually make your lives easier. And eventually you become more profitable because, you're a lawyer, right? It's all your time is money.
That's
So
wow.
it's
You
yeah,
figured it out. It's kind of like, the reverse
it's a work in
engineering.
it's a work in progress for sure.
Well, I
But
mean,
yeah,
that's like a lot of that's you want to do well by your clients too. So that's kind of
a
like
hundred
it's a
percent.
lot. It's almost like you're setting yourself up for your own accountability. You're not
Yeah, a
just
hundred
putting like
percent.
a billboard out there. You're literally saying like, let's see how we did.
Exactly.
60 leads. Like, did you close them? How'd you do with your file? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So how should lawyers right now who are on Instagram and who are on Facebook and LinkedIn, like how should they be leveraging their digital channels build their brand and for thought leadership?
Yeah. So when it comes to building brand and thought leadership, I think the first place that any lawyer should start with is really kind of like, going back to the basics, like figuring out what's your brand promise, what's your tone, what's your voice, what's your target demographic. Really understand like who it is that you're reaching. Because when you build thought leadership pieces, so when you draft that white paper or put out a post on social media, it should be consistent in what you're leveraging, right? And, these platforms are basically like digital billboards. So it gives you an opportunity to reach the masses. And you want to make sure that the messaging that you're putting out there is consistent with who you are and what you do.
Yep.
And so the first thing that I say always is do a Google search on yourself. Like type your name in and, your practice area and just see what comes up and assess your online profile. Like look to see, like, is your website in line with who you are, what you do? And not just that, but like what kind of business you want to bring in.
Yeah.
Because if I'm a prospect and I'm doing a search, I want to make sure that, I'm going to find you. You want to make sure that I'm going to find you. So start by doing an assessment of like the lay of the land. Look at your website, make sure that it's relevant to your practice areas, make sure that, there's, if people, and especially these days, sophisticated, educated, um, prospective clients are going to do digging. They're going to do some research,
Yeah. Sure.
and they're going to stack you up against your competitors. And you want to make sure that you stand out. So this, the secondary to that is after you do a search on yourself, is search your competitors and see what they
Okay.
look like and what they're doing online. And then from there, you can kind of build on that. So, for example, you see that you're not so active on social, but your competitor down the street is putting out content, putting out video content every day, getting engagement. That's like, an alert to you that, hey, so and so is doing it. It seems that they're getting engagement. I should probably be doing something like that also. So, when it comes to kind of assessing where to invest your time and how to start, because I think that's, what becomes a little bit overwhelming for lawyers is they know they need to be doing it. They don't know where to start. And it's very overwhelming because there's so many platforms and there's so
Right.
many,
You,
should I be on Instagram? Should I be on Facebook? What should I do?
so one thing I feel like lately is I'm seeing a lot of like the same lawyers all the time, like this. And I
Mhm.
like that. They're good people. I like them. I've worked with a lot of them, podcasts, whatnot, but it seems like they're just like always there. And there's like millions of lawyers, but it's always like the same ones that I'm like constantly seeing, like whether it's on like LinkedIn or Instagram, or it's just or speaking at an event, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or
Right.
sponsoring events, the same ones.
So those are likely the lawyers that are investing in their marketing,
Yeah.
right?
No,
And
I mean, I think it's great. I mean, because it's working. I mean, I have lawyers, I've had people tell me they've had, by people who send them referrals, those referring partners have retired based on just the referrals they send. I mean,
yeah, there you
right,
go.
they are doing something right.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's just it, right? Like you kind of hit the nail on it is, you know, you're seeing what your prospects are seeing as well. So like, and it kind of takes some time to realize that is when you're scrolling or when your prospects are scrolling on social media, they're seeing the algorithm has kind of changed here where back in the day, like I would say 5, 6 years ago, you would see posts of accounts that you were following in chronological order. So whatever, whoever you were following, whenever they would post, the ones who posted most recently would come up first. Now we're in a place where you're seeing content of people that you engage with. So these platforms are trying to make it a more enjoyable more enjoyable experience for you. So for example, if you constantly like my stuff, you're going to see more of my stuff because they're trying to make it a better like
Gotcha.
customer experience. But every third or fourth post, you're going to see a sponsored ad. Most people don't even realize that they're sponsored until they start seeing the word sponsored.
Yeah.
And those are companies or profiles that are targeting you. So, one thing that we do, it's like kind of sneaky, but it's good marketing, is you put a piece of code on your website and then you can retarget. So everybody who has visited your website in the last 30 days, you want to retarget them on social media. So they've been to your website now they're going to start seeing your content on social and you want to drive
Uh,
them back to your website. So
Awesome.
it's effective marketing.
Yeah. There you go. You got the tricks. You got the tricks of the trade, Marley.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so let's see what else we have. So we've talked about content marketing and what role it plays with digital strategy. Um, how can lawyer? Okay, so here's something. How can lawyers create content that really resonates? You know, like we see, what do you like? There are people out there who say how much
Yeah.
they've gotten, like in a judgment or like a settlement. And then there's, you know, I don't know if that resonates, or like there's people out there who show their family. I don't know, like what's the post that really resonate, do you think?
So I always our rule of thumb is 70 we follow like a 70-30 rule. So 70% of your content should be service based and educational and insightful and providing value added content to your prospect, and leave 30% of your content to be that authentic, original, like Benny Gold content. And that could be anything from like a day in the life, like come with me to the office, like check out what I've been doing. Depending on your comfort level, stuff with your kids. Like people want to see
Yeah.
content that resonates with them. And especially if you're like scoping out a professional service provider like a lawyer,
Sure.
you kind of want to see and want to relate to whoever it is you're going to work with, right?
Right.
So 30% we call like the fun content. And that could be, just like out of the box, not your like regular polished service based, educational based content, but more of that
I
like
like that. There's a breakdown.
original
Yeah.
original authentic content, and that's usually the content that performs best.
Do you do that by like, okay, every fourth post? I don't know what 30% would be, like every fourth post or like something like that.
Yeah, so again, like depending on the package or the scope of work,
Oh,
what we do is let's just say the package is 5 posts a week. So, we will break it down. So, 3 posts a week will be more service related educational. 1 to 2 posts a week will be more like, fun, authentic,
gotcha.
original content. And we're constantly like harassing our clients for that kind of content.
So that sort of leads me into the next question. Like, Marley,
Yeah.
what are your do's and don'ts for lawyers with social media? Like,
Such a good
yeah,
question.
like okay, I'll let you go with that.
Yeah. So definitely you want to be educational, you want to be insightful, you want to, you know, like do 100% invest in video content. It's the best way to get content out there and it usually performs really well in comparison to a static post. My don't is I'm always, and I know it's such a crazy controversial time at the moment for, people in many different like places and
Yeah.
politics and religion and all of that. I'd say be careful with what
Yeah.
you share out there.
Yeah.
You may have thoughts on, whatever's going on, and you may be a Trump supporter, a Biden supporter, a red, a blue, whatever it is you may be, from different religious backgrounds. Just be careful. Like,
Yeah.
you never know who's seeing what, and it could really tarnish your reputation.
Sure.
And, I would say that you want to uphold, um, the professional kind of demeanor that you would
Right.
have if a prospective client were to come and sit down with you in your office. You want that to translate well over to social media. So I would say that would be my biggest don't is, don't get wrapped up in that stuff, even though I know that, it's a trying time at the moment.
Yeah.
The other don't I would say is, if you're going to make a commitment to be on social media and to utilize social media is don't um, don't commit, for like 2-3 weeks and let it fall through
Yeah.
the cracks.
Right.
You want to build that momentum. It takes a while, right? Like I always say it's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Mhm.
It takes a while to see results. So don't get frustrated or disheartened if you don't see immediate results. You're not like, I always say, and I get this question all the time, like, how many files can I expect to bring on if I invest in social media? And it's like we can't give you that answer, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is another way to get exposure, and it's a numbers game. The more people that see you and what you do, the more likely it is that you're going to get retainers. Like
Right. Right.
it's a numbers game. So don't be discouraged or disheartened if you feel that you're investing in digital marketing and you're not seeing return. It takes a while to build that momentum and just keep going. Um, I would say
Keep
those are the
going.
two. Yeah, just keep going.
I
It'll
like that.
happen.
I like that. So, you did post on social media on LinkedIn very recently, and you kind of touched on it about a brand promise. Can you tell
Yeah.
us like what a brand promise is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I attended a conference last week. It was a conference here in Toronto, and it was the future of AI marketing. And one of the speakers was from a very well-known ad agency here named Cassette. And this speaker has been in the ad agency world for, over 2 decades. And we were talking about, good marketing from mediocre marketing. And his thoughts on AI was that everything is starting to sound the same. The more that we're leaning into Chat GPT, you look at, marketing messaging,
Yeah.
and everything is starting to sound the same because people are leaning too hard into these AI tools, and they're
Sort of the
basically
same like cadence.
yes,
You read it?
ex
Okay. Okay.
exactly. So and even like keywords, like you'll start to see things like unlock the potential of, or elevate the, or in the landscape of. And there's these like certain keywords and certain framing that, these AI tools are following. And what's becoming really apparent is that the agencies and the businesses that are using AI as a tool, but not as the answer, are actually surpassing and will end up surpassing competitors that are leaning too heavily into AI. And what he
Okay.
came to was business owners need to distinguish what their brand promise is. And their brand promise should be prevalent in all touch points of a company. So whether you see an ad on social media, or come into an office and speak to you, or meet you for a lunch, that your brand promise should be front and center. And what that is who am I? What do I believe in? And how can I help? And those three kind of, elements of what makes up a brand promise needs to be really at the heart of all of your marketing and all of the experiences that your clients and prospects have with you. And it shouldn't get lost, because your brand promise will end up influencing your reputation.
Right.
So, who am I? What do I offer? And what can clients expect from working with me? That's your brand promise.
Love it. That's awesome. Um, do you still have something called SocialEyes Academy?
I do have something called SocialEyes
Let's hear
Academy.
about that real quick.
Yeah. So, I would say about 2 years ago. So basically, COVID 2020, there was a huge kind of shift in um, where businesses wanted to invest in marketing. And, businesses started to realize, lawyers especially, you were really used to the in-person, um, come in to sign a retainer, come in and meet with me so we could have a
Right.
client communication. And there was this big sort of shift that we saw where companies started to pull spend from traditional marketing and invest in social media. At the same time, the economy was kind of in this weird place. It still kind of is. Are we heading into a recession? Are we in a recession? What does that look like? And we realized internally that there was like this big sort of um, space for people who don't have the budget to invest in an agency and want to do it themselves. So these like DIY approaches. So, I don't have the budget to work with an agency, but I know that digital marketing is important and I want to do it myself and I want to learn. And so, our executive team sat around a table one day and we're like, how can we help? Like, how can we help those sole practitioners, those individual lawyers who are, working and realize that they want to do social, they want to invest in digital, but they don't know how. And so we put together a few offerings, and it's still in the works. Like, we're
Yeah.
still kind of building out what the SocialEyes Academy is. But what we started doing is we started doing training sessions, master classes, join a 5-week session.
Wow.
We're going to walk you through everything that you do internally, everything from creating a marketing plan to how to draft strategic content creation. what do ads look like and how do I invest in meta ads effectively? How can I assess my ROI? So we've done in-person training sessions, we've done virtual training sessions, virtual workshops, we've done one-on-one coaching, and most recently we launched our Meta Ads Bootcamp, which is
Oh,
a completely virtual online program. You basically purchase it. It's like super reasonable. I think it's like $40.
wow.
And we basically like pre-recorded everything from like how to set up your ads manager, how to set up your business manager, and how to launch 5 main ad objectives, everything from page follower ads, engagement ads, reach ads, traffic ads, and lead generation ads. So we're like literally teaching people exactly what we do internally to do it themselves.
Wow.
And it's super reasonable. And we just thought, if we have some intel to share to help fellow business owners and entrepreneurs do it themselves, and they don't have the budget to invest in us, we wanted to kind of help and create a tool that would allow them to either do it themselves or get their internal marketing person to do it effectively.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that and all your
Thank
success.
you.
So Marley, give us some advice for taking the first step to get socially connected and brand awareness and enter the digital marketing space.
Yeah, so I would say don't be afraid of it. I think that there's a lot of overwhelm that happens, especially with lawyers who are, they know they need to do it, but they're a little bit hesitant or a little bit private even with their lives, and they don't feel that they either
Right.
have something to offer, or they don't feel comfortable sharing. Every lawyer who does good work has something to offer an audience. And it could be anything, but my suggestion
Think
is
that.
to just start. It's I think it's so important to realize that marketing is not a linear experience. It's peaks and valleys, and sometimes you just have to start, create a post, share something, share a thought, share an experience, just get out there. And if you're really hesitant, just choose one platform.
Right.
Choose one platform to start. Kind
Good.
of assess like where your prospects are spending time and start with that one platform and just
Awesome
get comfortable using it. Yeah.
advice. And the passion overflows from you while we chat. I love it. Is
Thank
there
you.
anything we missed today that you want to share with the Lawyer Stories community?
No, I don't think so. I think that was kind of what I wanted to end off with as well, is kind of that, reassurance that um it can feel overwhelming. It doesn't need to be. And, I think that, once you start, you'll see the value in it, and, utilize these digital communities and these, micro communities to connect, because everyone is spending time online doing research and connecting. And, I used to say back in 2016, it was like my mantra at the time, that the cocktail party has moved online.
Yeah, I like that.
Um,
I like that.
and it's very true. You have a
Yeah.
very, invested um community online, and people are like eager for information. So, you know, get online, comment in a group, post something, and just get out there.
Wicked cool. Marly Broudie, what a pleasure. Um,
Thank you.
the founder and president of SocialEyes Communications. So please stay with us. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.
Thank you.